want to ask the question, what language should we use to determine the value of the letters of the name? You say, well, how do we know which language to use? Should we use the Greek number system to determine the meaning of the name? Should we use the Hebrew system of value of the letters? Should we use the Latin system of the value of the letters? How do you know which number system to use to determine the numerical value of the name? Well, the fact is, there's no doubt whatsoever that we need to use the Latin as the language to determine the number and the name of this beast. And you say, why Latin, Pastor Bor? Well, for a very simple reason. You remember that there was a dragon in Revelation 12 that tried to kill the child as soon as the child was born. Let me ask you, what empire was ruling at that time? It was Rome. Then you read Revelation 13 and verse 2. It says that the dragon gave his seat and his power and his authority to whom? To the beast. So let me ask you, where does the beast receive his authority from? He receives it from the dragon, and the dragon represents Satan, but also what? Rome. So in other words, the beast, the little horn, received their power from Rome. By the way, the little horn also comes from the head of the dragon beast, which is Rome. In other words, this power, the little horn or the beast, are from what nation? They are Roman powers, which means that we must use the system of what? The system of numbers that was used in Rome. Now let me ask you, what number system was used in Rome? The system that is known as Roman numerals. Now, allow me to read a text from the New Testament to prove to you that Latin was spoken in the days of Christ. John chapter 19 and verse 20 tells us that Latin was spoken. Don't you think that I'm just saying, well, you know, they spoke Latin way back then? No, I'm not saying that. The Bible says that Latin was the language of Rome back then. Notice John 19 and verse 20. It says, then many of the Jews read this title, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew. What else? Greek, and what else? In Latin. So did Latin exist in the times of the Roman Empire? Yes, it was the official language of Rome. Let me ask you, what is the official language of papal Rome? Portuguese? No! The official language of papal Rome is Latin, which means that his name must be a Latin name because this is a Roman power, and we must use Roman numerals to determine the number of his name. Are you understanding what I'm saying? Very, very important. Okay, now, let me just digress a moment here, because I want to show you that the number 666 is very closely related to Rome. You know, in antiquity, as I was mentioned, in Hebrew, in Greek, and in Hebrew and in Greek, they used letters to denote numbers. And they did the same thing in Latin, but they changed things around. Whereas in Greek and in Hebrew, you know, there were many of the letters of the alphabet that were equivalent to numbers. It wasn't so in Latin. In Latin, what they did was choose 6 Roman numerals to represent all numbers. You say, no, Pastor, there's 7. There's the I, the V, the X, the L, the C, and the D, right? And the M. You say there's 7, there's not 6. But let me tell you that the original system, which was developed by the Latin poets, did not include the M. The M was added in the Middle Ages. The way that they used to write 1,000 was not with an M. I have pictures of this. They would write 2 D's side by side to indicate 1,000. And so the Latin poets established a system where there were 6 letters of the alphabet that were equivalent to numbers. And you know what's very interesting? If you add the 6 Roman numerals that were part of the original system, if you add 1 plus 5 plus 10 plus 50 plus 100 plus 500, the total of the Roman numerals is 666. This would seem to indicate that we're supposed to look for the number 666 somewhere in Rome.